Okay, here I am recording video number 2 for all the answers or questions I need to answer. I was going to do this a couple days ago, but my brother and his girlfriend came down for a couple days, and so it turned into a bit of a drunken party, so I didn't really have time. Um, but I have a couple questions from Mr. Sparkle. The first one is, you wake up to find yourself in a cave filled with things you've always wanted. There's a letter on a chair that reads, if you want to get out of here, you can pull the lever by the door, but you can only take what you can carry. But if you take anything outside of here, you will become straight upon leaving the room. You'd still be exactly who you are and all of that, but now you would only want women. Would you take what you've always wanted to stop being a homosexual? Or would you remain a dude's dude and leave everything there? Um, I would leave everything there. I can't really think of any tangible thing that I would want badly enough to change who I am. I mean, honestly, who I am, if I suddenly liked women, even if everything stayed the same, I wouldn't be who I am. Being gay is a big part of who I am, and I don't know if you meant retroactively I would have always liked women. In that case, I would be a completely different person because who I am today is a huge part. A huge part of who I am today is because I'm gay and because of the choices I guess that forced upon me. But anyways, yeah, I can't think of anything I'd ever want that badly to give up dudes. Mm. Um, his next question is, you are granted 5 extra years to live between 20 and 30. If you give up sex for those 5, could you do it? Would you do it? Well, there certainly have been 5 years between the ages of 20 and 30 where I haven't had sex, so can I count that and get an extra 5? Because, yeah, absolutely, I would do that. Um, his last question is, if you walked into a party and decided you wanted to put on a song that would make everyone dance and be in a good mood, what would it be? Probably anything by Robin. I mean, if that doesn't make you dance and put you in a good mood, then you're stupid. Chilito Serrano asked, what are some of your favorite books? Ever since I read this series when I was about 13 or so, this has been one of my favorite, some of my favorite books. It's the Xenogenesis, aka Lilith Brood series by Octavia Butler. It's science fiction. Which is generally the science fiction or fantasy, although I like science fiction a lot more than fantasy, is kind of the fiction books I like to read the most. But this series is especially good because it's super feminist. It deals with sex and gender a lot, sexuality, sexual orientation. It's a really fantastic series. It's really progressive. Octavia Butler is a well-known black feminist author, which clearly has informed her worldview and informs the way she portrays her female characters. The main character in this series, his name is Lilith, which draws allusion to the apocryphal first wife of Adam, Lilith, who wasn't willing to obey Adam, who wasn't willing to basically be put into a patriarchal system, and so was cast out and became in Mesopotamian mythology, Lilith is seen as a devil, or is a word for she devils, or so yeah. It's really interesting. The great set of books, especially if you like feminism and science fiction, which I do. So those are good books. I have a couple anonymous questions. One was, have you ever seen the South Park that outlines the Book of Mormon? Is it real, or do they take a lot of creative license? How do you feel about the concluding statement the Mormon Boy makes? I haven't seen it, so I can't really answer those questions. But based on the few excerpts I've seen and read about the Book of Mormon movie, or sorry, the Book of Mormon Broadway musical, which was written by the South Park creators, writers. They have. I mean, they're not making stuff up as far as I'm aware. Mormonism really is that fucking weird. Um, so they might take creative license in how they in maybe interpret, because coming from an outside perspective, you're just going to view different doctrines of Mormonism very, very differently than an insider Mormonism would, aka things that are completely fucking weird. Mormons don't agree are weird, but they objectively are. So, from what my experience is with South Park and the Book of Mormon musical, it's pretty spot on. Next question, or last question. What do you think about communism falling in Cuba? Today there was a story in the New York Times that Cuba is going to allow home ownership and sales to expats in the USA. Well, the thing is, Cuba, communism is a really, really, really broad category. The kind of communism that I support and believe in isn't what was ever practiced in Cuba, although Cuba was better at what I could consider real Marxist communism than the Soviets were. But still, Cuba was a Soviet Marxist-Leninist type state, which means it's authoritarian, and I don't believe in authoritarian communism at all. I think it's almost, well, it's hypocritical to the extreme, because communism is about shared and equal power of the people. And as soon as you have an authoritarian state, you've negated that whole idea, which is what Marx wrote about, if you actually read the Communist Manifesto, and what the point of the Communist Revolution is supposed to be. A Communist Revolution is supposed to be. So, I am in great favor of increasing individual freedoms for the people of Cuba. I do think that individual land and home ownership is maybe a step in the wrong direction. It seems like a step towards a more capitalistic society, which is not good. Capitalism doesn't work. And I believe I mean, Marx was right that the fundamental source of inequality is capitalism, and is an unequal class system. But Cuba was never an equal class system, because it employed authoritarian rule instead of rule by the people. And that's what communism is about the people ruling, and not having the party or the party leaders have the power. They're supposed to enact the will of the people without having their own personal agenda get in the way, which is why I'm an anarcho-communist, because as soon as you have people in power, they're going to abuse that power, and so that's why I go for anarcho-communism as opposed to other forms of communism. So that's a very, very short answer about something I could go on forever about. So yeah, this is already a pretty long video. It's kind of fun. If you have any, maybe I'll do a video that's a little less esoteric, or a little less political in a bit. So yeah, any other questions, go ahead and ask. Talk to you later.